Hello and welcome to another Social Tree Live. It's Friday afternoon. We've survived another week. And it looks like, James, you're trapped in a warp hole today.
Yeah, it's a wormhole, digital wormhole, and you look like you're gazing on the universe outside of our planet. Is this in celebration of SpaceX launch later on today?
Yeah, that's right. It's my new office setup. Social Tree. We're no expense spared. This is my new office. So
nice.
Yeah, it's great stuff. And it's funny because we are living in a digital world, James. I haven't seen. When was the last time I saw you face to face?
Well, it was quite a long time ago, but I don't blame the pandemic for that, mate. I just don't think we like each other, so I just think we avoid each other. The pandemic is just a convenient excuse for us never to see each other again, which is actually, I think, great for both of us. I think.
Yeah, it's great to distance myself physically from you, but unfortunately, due to work, we are bound together.
I think 6 months.
Yeah, but yeah, it's amazing the world that we live in. It's all digital first, and so many interactions and relationships are starting in this digital arena. We've hired staff who we have never met in person, but I feel like I know really well, and I think that we are living and competing in a digital world. And in this today's live, what we wanted to talk about is social selling and also digital selling, how the two collide and how you can build your digital avatar to really gain traction on in this new digital arena. So that's something we've been helping a lot of customers equip themselves with. But I still think the bar is quite low. It's shocking to me how many calls I go on, and people have poor internet connection, bad webcam, they're hunched over on their laptops, and it's competitive out there, especially we still are in a really deep recession. And there's some really small tips people can make to their home setup. And I know, James, you are a really early adopter at Social Tree, trying to drive home loads of new equipment, such as microphones. But what do you think is the key to getting to be an effective digital seller? What do you think are some of the key equipment people can invest in?
I think one of the things was, and it wasn't my term, it was Adam Knight's who said that you have to become remote ready. And I think remote ready is going to be a feature forever now. And I think, just to take a step back, I completely agree. I think the efficiency of this and the human tendency to revert to the activity which requires the least effort will mean that this isn't going to go away. I think that people are going to do online meetings far more than we think, because it just saves so much time. You can do so many calls in the same time it would take to meet people. And I'm also learning, actually, you don't miss a huge amount of meet. Everyone's like, oh, face-to-face, you just can't replace face-to-face. Like, you can actually do quite a lot remotely. And I think over time, we'll get more and more used to it. But to answer your question directly, I think the first thing, I think, isn't even an equipment thing. I think it's just where is your camera thing? Because I think that's the first thing. I don't think you even need to do anything in terms of purchasing, firstly, other than just saying, how is my camera angle going to impact me when I talk to people? Because, you go on calls sometimes, you see people like the camera's down there and they're like speaking like that. It's all, you can't even see their face. And I think it's such a bad first impression if you're a prospect or you're about to join a client call when you have a really bad setup. Yeah. And I think that's something which a lot of sales professionals, they don't even think about.
Yeah, 100%. When you're working in sales, you might spend like a couple £100 on a suit or some shirts. Anything that's customer facing, you spend money on these clothes to make a good impression. But it's funny, people don't spend the same amount on a webcam, for example. You can get a decent webcam starting at £40 or £50.
Yeah.
Think about getting a new shirt or a new dress or something that's going to make a good client impression. But people are still happy just to have grainy webcams. I don't think people even care about wearing suits. I have not been on a call for probably 3 months where I've seen someone full suit.
No.
It's rare that actually someone actually wearing a shirt, and I always congratulate them when I see them, well done for wearing a shirt today. But I think it's funny, people can accept t-shirts, but rather than spending all that money on suits and new clothes and stuff like that, just buy a webcam. That's
I agree. Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head. Webcam is so important. I think it's the first initial purchase, a good webcam. And if you want to really take up, you can actually buy a camera. Well, this is the Sony ZV-1. And this is a great introduction camera for anyone who wants to do video casts. They want to do like proper videos. It retails for about £670, and it's what we all have, isn't it, Matt? We have this camera. We also have a Logitech webcam, don't we?
Yeah. The Logitech webcams, I think, are great. They're 4K. I think they look really, really clear. And also the audio. Like I know, James, you were on the pioneers of audios, and we've got these blue Yeti mics here, which I think have made a difference to the audio quality.
Yeah, £100, and I think for some calls you don't need it, but I think if you're producing content, I think having a remote setup is so important, and I feel it's completely ignored by so many people now. Like they don't even think about, oh, I don't want to have a remote setup. I think every salesperson probably have a rig, a webcam, a microphone, and to a wider degree, they should have. You're basically now, when we do calls, you're literally doing a whole day of online presentations. Every call you have with a client is an online presentation. It's a completely different way of work.
Especially if you work for like a tech company, and if your home setup isn't slick, and if the internet's lagging, your screen's grainy, people can't hear you, then for me, like I feel definitely less confident to buy people's technology. Like I want to see them like coming in really clear, great equipment. It is really, really, it's like really important and something we're all learning and adapting to, I think.
Yeah, and the good thing is we're all at the start.
Yeah,
that's the great thing. We're all at the start. So like you can, in the past, everyone had like 25 years. Most people we're in the first stage of this, So it's it's really exciting, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I used to be, as you know, really like value face-to-face meetings, very like Japanese in my culture. Meeting. Like, I believed you had to meet someone face-to-face to do a deal, like unless I can see them in the flesh or and if I wasn't doing meetings, I'd feel like, I'm letting myself down, we're not going to get any pipeline. But now I will never meet a new business prospect again face-to-face, unless it's for something social like an event or like dinner or something social. But for calls, it's not efficient. Like now I'm so much more efficient. I'm not on the train, it costs less, and like people don't need to smell me. Like, I mean, that's what is the difference other than having a chat and actually smelling that person? Like there's no like me talking to you right now. It's a much better experience that people are further away from me.
I particularly if you're older, mate. I think it's best that we stay remote. Actually, I think for both of us, actually. But I completely agree with you. You were really you were proper on, like you used to meet so many people. You always traveling around London, and I was as well. And so do you think that you are saying that because you're with sales, you will never meet a new business prospect ever again?
Yeah, I don't think so. Especially for like the first like discovery calls and stuff. Like I'd go meet prospects, in face-to-face just for discovery chat, just a discovery meeting. I know lots of other companies did that, but now with everyone's comfortable with virtual stuff such as whether it's Zoom, whether it's Teams, whether it's Google Hangouts. It's not needed, but it's a different skill set, I think, and a lot of people who again don't still work. I think investing in things like desktops as well, like rather than a laptop, having a desktop. It saved my eyes. Like honestly, working on a laptop all day, at the end of the day, my eyes were bleeding. I had to get a desktop. And it's actually much better. Like my home setup's really, really good. You don't need much space. And today we're using green screen, so you can make things a bit more fun, a bit more visual. What I would say, I think green screen technology still needs a bit of work. Like, it's not 100% perfect. I don't think I've seen anyone really nail the green screen experience. Early days.
I mean, an interesting point you made about this shift. I mean, this idea about moves to Zoom, and do you think that meeting people, like do you think that that's dead? And also like the old way of like prospecting, like you'd call them up, you give them a ring, qualify and meet them. Do you think do you see a future for that, or do you think we are now in a new paradigm where actually sales is more about, in many ways, you're a vlogger, almost, you're a YouTube vlogger, like that's what you do, and you kind of use content to actually develop rapport with people, and it's actually not about calling and meeting people and hoping that they like you face to face?
Yeah, I think the sales process definitely has changed, and I think that sort of like calling stuff's coming later on at the journey. And Sophie, coming with a question here: do you think anything is lost in forming relationships with potential clients virtually? I think that in terms of building really deep relationships, I think face to face does still have an advantage. Like going to get a beer with someone, or a coffee, or a lunch, or like going to an event. Like when you actually, because when you're on a Zoom call, everything is very like, it's got a purpose to it. So when you go to a Zoom call, you're talking about, the agenda. You do have a little chit chat, but when you're like face to face, just stuff comes out. I think you can definitely build deeper relationships face to face. But is that worth the time and investment of traveling? So if I'm going to go meet someone and they're like in North London, that's half a day of my time for maybe like a 3 or 4% increase in actual, relationship. So like, is that time worth that slight increase? I don't think it is. I think you lose a bit. Yeah, I do think you lose a bit, but I think the efficiency is outrageous.
Yeah.
I think
what you lose face to face is this whole bigger, like, you lose the 3 dimensions to it. So when you talk like now, it's 2-dimensional transactional conversation. But I think with the 3-dimensional element, you have a much more a nuanced conversational dynamic, which you don't get online. And I really think that is important. I think that you can replace that, though, by, I think, being strategic. So I think one of the most important things, actually, you can actually have events where you take your clients out, or new clients, with the express purpose of building rapport with them. So say, look, we're not going to meet for half an hour. Let's have dinner. Let's just enjoy our time together, and let's actually catch up. Let's talk about work, but let's talk about how you're getting on, and then let's deal with the nitty gritty business stuff through a Zoom call, because I think they're very different things. And it's a question from Sarah, who says, "Does potential account value and scale of sales determine if sales meetings become virtual face-to-face interview?" Yeah, that's a really good question in terms of like deal size. I mean, we've done some very big deals completely virtually. That being said, this bigger point about business travel. My brother works for Virgin, so he's really in the loop of aviation and stuff. And my hunch is I think business travel is going to go through a really big transformation after this, because if you're a business, I think there's 2 factors dragging on that question. The first one is, I think, the environmental factor. So if you're traveling around the world going business travel, a lot of businesses are trying to become carbon neutral by 2030. So a big part of that is, how do we shave our carbon emissions as a business? One of the easiest ways is cutting down business travel. So we flew to New York. We've had meetings in New York. Obviously, it's really fun. I love traveling, but in terms of the pure carbon cost, it's huge. The second factor is, how much do you lose really virtual? Like, I mean, what are you losing? Like you said, Max, you might lose 4%. You might lose the networking, drinks, and getting to know people, which, to be honest with you, is important. I mean, we've done a lot of business on networking drinks, like a lot of the deals. So I don't know, what are your thoughts? Do you think that big deals, like, you kind of do need, we will go back to flying out to New York, meeting a client, flying to Hong Kong?
I don't think so. I don't think it needs a face to face, especially for maybe for people from a certain demographic who are like, this is how we do it. But especially for like millennials, Gen Z and stuff, like, we don't need face to face. Like, I speak to people who've got good friends, like, really close friends who they just speak to on Instagram. Never met them, meet them rarely in the pandemic. And I don't think in the future it's going to be a big deal. I think you can do it all virtually. But what I think is a really important concept people need to think about is their digital avatar. Like, what is your digital avatar? Like when I started first working in sales, when I was in like working in telemarketing, we did loads of sales training. Like we talked about like how your phone mannerism is, your face-to-face mannerism, but they never talked about your digital avatar. What does your digital footprint look like? And I think there's such an overlap between digital selling, like on a Zoom call, but also what you do on social media. So when you connect with someone on LinkedIn afterwards, LinkedIn has become basically a virtual networking suite, or the world's largest virtual conference. And that's where I think LinkedIn are trying to get into, and they're the best, well placed to do it. They're doing things like LinkedIn events, LinkedIn Live. You can build communities through social media. So I think this overlap of having a Zoom, having a virtual conference, a virtual roundtable, then what you do in social media through your digital avatar is really important to keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think it's a cultural change that people need to embrace. And it is scary, building this digital footprint where everything's online. The power is immense. You can reach tens of thousands of people. You can really build out your brand, and it's public that hasn't been seen before in the history of humanity.
I think your point, what I agree with, this change is part of, I think, was what Raoul Powell said, is this change, the metaverse, and the metaverse is essentially this new world which is being created. And you look at the crypto space as well. So you have this massive change, this digitalization of currency. You have the creation of this technology like blockchain, which is building a new world in front of our eyes. A new digital world is being built in front of our eyes, where you can buy assets completely in a metaverse. You can buy NFTs, which are valuable pieces of art, essentially, completely virtually. And you have this, and at the same time, you have this pandemic. You have this change to digital selling, where your avatar, as you said, is this digital version of you who is prospecting online. And I feel like there's so many changes happening in the world, like not just one thing. It's like 6 or 7 things happening in crescendo, which at the high level, the summary is the emergence of a digital world, a world in which we completely exist online. And your major point around young generation, also, you got kids, Max, like they're growing up in a world which is, I mean, they must be, is there a world? Obviously, I'm not saying like, they have analog conversations, but the next generation, man, this is not going to be weird to them, is it?
It's so my wife is originally from India, and I've got 2 kids, and they speak to their family over in India, 3 or 4 times a week, and they actually build real relationships with these people. Like 10, 15 years ago, if you had family on the other side of the world, or even up north, even like 2 or 3 hours away, you're not going to build that relationship with people. But there's a really deep bond that has been built through Skype and like just through WhatsApp messaging, Facebook meetings, like family. You can build relationships all digitally, and I can see it forming in the family, and they've got a great connection just through that. And with a lot of people, they're meeting their first relationships online, whether it's like Tinder, Instagram. People are finding their life partners, and the first time they meet is digitally. Like that's the first time that they meet, and then eventually they meet there. So if people can find their other half, they can find their life partners, then you can find some business deals through this world. But again, it's a different skill set. Like now, salespeople have to be great marketers. Like before, when I started out in sales, there's no concept of how do you write a good blog, how do you present, how do you convey the core messages through social media. There's no marketing training. It wasn't even a skill set. So I think like sales and marketing now, to be a good salesperson, you have to be a great marketer. And actually, like it might even be more valuable understanding how to create compelling content posts and being great on the phone. Because I mean, like, who even calls people up these days anyway?
It's because also you can't get away with being a wheelie dealer. Like, I told him. You can't get away with just having the charisma and the skill to be really, really like influential, because people will go away. They're going to do their research on you. They're going to look you up. And I honestly think, I agree with you. Like, I think the sales profession is changing drastically. I don't think cold calling is effective. And people will say, now you're doing it wrong. all the high growth businesses we work with, the successful, you're going to get the boiler room somewhere. The examples, I still do the cold egg, smile and dial every day, mate. Yeah, it's not dead, cold call. You don't know what we do. They're always one-man bands. The people who say this, the experts, they're one-man bands for start. They're sales coaches who actually don't have businesses themselves. First red flag. Okay, mate, you can say that. You're a one-man band. You work for yourself. So that's the first thing to me is like, clearly doesn't scale. All the high growth scaled companies we know, the successful sales teams deploy massive digitalization. They have a massive push to digital and automation. I only hear this stuff around cold calling with one-man bands, to be honest with you.
It's not, I think it's important though not to be confused between cold calling and telemarketing, because cold calling, I think, has definitely, I think, the jury's sort of out. Unless anyone in the comments wants to disagree, feel free to. But, cold calling is just not an effective use of time. Telemarketing, people who are, a bit further qualified, maybe they've downloaded a brochure, they've gone through that journey, so they've actually got to a point where they've downloaded something.
It is a bit more, but again, I've tried, personally, maybe I'm just crap at it, but I think there's so many touch points now you can engage with people. And I think people now like being messaged. They don't, it's very intrusive. I think a call 100% is really valuable, to really explore what you're doing. But a lot of people now, when they get a call out of thin air, it's like, who the fuck is this? Why are they calling? And I don't know who you are. I'm not in the right space to talk right now. Can you call me back at this time? You might get them on the phone a little bit, but they're going to be online looking at your brochure. And I feel like in the grand scheme of effort, I personally think that putting all your effort into trying to hack someone on the phone and trying to call them, or putting your effort into digitalizing your business, I think that it is a consensus. I think consensus.
I think there's it's all about what is your first communication with that company? Is your first communication going to be someone cold calling you up, disrupting your day? Or should your first communication be, I found a really interesting post on social media that changed the way that I think about something? So if your first time meeting a company, meeting a person is a post that changes the way you think about something, then you get a call later on, a couple months down the line, or when you've gone through a bit of a journey.
Or text, SMS.
Or text, or something else. You're primed to that. And I think that sort of, that digital interaction should be the first interaction, and it should be something around shaping the way that you think about something, and ideally thinking about something in a way you didn't think about it before.
I think actually, to be honest with you, I think digital is going to eat sales. I really think content is going to eat sales. I think that now, yes, you need someone on the point to do selling. I think it's really important to have that salesperson, but the way in which they'll be selling is different. So they'll be producing content. They'll be pushing the brand online. There'll be experts. There'll be consultants. They're not going to be this kind of wheeler dealer kind of yeah, right, mate. Yeah, that kind of thing, which 10 years ago was the big thing. Also, I think the culture's changing. I don't think people like that so much anymore. I think in the past it was this car salesman image. I don't think is the future. And in tech, we're going to think about it. 5 years time. Are we going to be less digital or more digital? I think we'll be way more digital. I think we're going to be even more immersed into this new metaverse, this universe. So and I think phone calls, I really think younger people, I notice younger people do not like talking on the phone as much as older people. It's not ingrained in them. They prefer chats, chatting. They prefer chatting and they like that. And WhatsApp, they don't like older people. Give me a call, we'll talk it out. I like a call sometimes; it's just quicker. But I noticed with the team, different people they prefer chats, and I can't see this going back to a world. And that goes to your point about LinkedIn. LinkedIn, there's 750 million users on LinkedIn. It's growing even more so. We see so many people have their face-to-face avatars really high. It's they're legit they're so smart, they're so successful, they are literally the top 1% of professionals, but they haven't done anything on their digital avatar has been neglected. So there's this massive discrepancy between their face-to-face and what they've accomplished and then their digital avatar, which is complete rubbish. So it's like pushing up the digital avatar to make it so it's as good as their face-to-face one.
Yeah. I think there's, it's definitely a cultural change that needs to go on, because I know so many successful people working in sales who have who did the face-to-face game for a long time and did it very well, and that was the nature of their business, smashed it, like honestly were leading the way. But that has, like, through COVID, has disappeared. Like, people just don't want to do it anymore. It's actually a risk to your life to do it. Like, honestly, meeting up with people, like, you could get fined, it's risk to your life. Yeah, I'm sure lockdown will be eased, but I don't think people are going to go back. And it's I think people will go back to the office maybe like 1 day a week, 1 or 2 days a week. And I think you made a good point earlier. We were talking last week, James, saying that people, the idea of going back to the office is nice, but once it's 2 or 3 weeks in and you're up at 6:30 in the morning and you've actually got to get out there, and then you travel.
Mate. Once winter hits, people's diet, like once winter comes, it's like, oh, we'll go to the office. Like, people say they go to the office 3 times. It means 1 day a week. So you might get, I know some of our team, some people love going to the office. It's a minority, like 1%. The majority of people are going to wake up and think, I want to work from home. So if you're lucky enough, they're going to work from home, because you're going to be stuck on a tube. But I think the novelty of meeting up your team is really important. So I think there'll be like a stress on, let's meet up and have a face-to-face meeting for fun. But also practically, like, we're talking about how we actually work. Like right now, doing this live stream, right? We can't do this at work.
Yeah.
You couldn't do a call. I couldn't do a call and say someone else, because we have a desk, right? We don't have our own cubicles, private cubicles. In order to make office work for us, we'd actually all need to have our own private, because we shout as well. Another thing is we shout. I don't know why, but we all shout, and then that means everyone else shouts. So the whole team is like, hello, the social selling company. So it's actually really impractical, actually, for us right now.
There's a question here saying, what about suggested from George? What about suggested message wording on LinkedIn? Do you think AI will affect interaction significantly, or is the human touch irreplaceable? I think it's a good question. And I think if you look at LinkedIn, you will see that there's there is a lot of automation running around, a lot of cut and paste messages being sent, and I think it's about finding a balance between automation and personalization. So I think AI, artificial intelligence, technology, is going to replace some of that actual human interaction. Like, I do actually foresee a world in 5, 10, 15 years where your first interaction with a person probably isn't going to be with that person. It'll probably be with their digital avatar. So if you've built your digital avatar, and I've got my digital avatar, and my digital avatar is programmed and knows what I want, knows what I'm about, and your digital avatar is programmed, I can foresee a world where the first interaction between me and you is actually our digital avatar interacting with each other in a way that is actually removed from us. And I see that AI getting work, because look at how things are working. Like, things are starting to learn you. Like, look at whether it's Siri or whether it's Alexa. These things are starting to learn about you, what you like, what you're interested in. In 5 or 10 years, these algorithms, this data, they're going to know you really well. They're going to know what
you know yourself,
and they're going to know you as well. So I think our digital avatars will be able to find, is there a mutual interest between us, between our digital avatars? I think they will know. And I think the algorithms on LinkedIn will be able to pick that up. So I definitely foresee a world on LinkedIn where AI, automation, and that first layer of that digital avatar is very present. And I think we joked about it as well, that one day when you die, James, or I die, our digital avatar will still be there. Our profiles will still be active on social media. And through AI and automation, in essence, it's a ghost in the sort of machine. Like, it'll still be alive, and you'll still have an interest of what you are. And if you programmed it before you were to perish, in a way, you would live on through the digital sphere. It's really the implications of AI and the understanding of you are immense.
Yeah, I go one further, saying that the algorithms will know you better than you know yourself. They will be able to preempt your behavior before. So to give you the anecdote, I recently, a few months ago, got engaged. And leading up to the engagement, my search history started to change. And
Yeah.
I am one person. So imagine the millions of men who go through this journey of searching where's the best place, rings, what to say. So what happens is Google will be are starting to work out the search trends and your behavior before you actually go to get engaged. And then you can extrapolate that saying, okay, well, he's got engaged. What happens usually after engagement? Weddings. What happens after the wedding? Children. You extrapolate that over millions of iterations, and the algorithm will know you better than you know yourself. It will predict what you want to do before you're even aware that you want to do it. Just like smart TVs, this Web 3.0, which you're talking about, and to your point around LinkedIn, I completely agree that that's going to happen. It is happening. It's what Microsoft have said they're going to do. They even said that a couple of years ago. This is the future. AI will be controlling your avatar. It will be basically your virtual PA, which will be qualifying out all of the noise and then talking to brands which you want to talk to, and it'll be done all virtually.
Yeah.
And that's coming. It's 5-10 years.
It's here in every walk of life. So this thing about the human touch is nice, but it's expensive. And if you look at like chatbots, like when you go and speak to like, you know, whether it's Sky or whether it's you're trying to sort out your internet provider, you'll get pushed to a chatbot. And actually, most people now prefer it.
Man.
Yeah.
Chatbots. Yeah. Go on. Sorry, mate. You go.
Yeah, as I say, like, you know, why would you want to hang on a queue for hours waiting to talk to someone when you can just go through a chat? You can speak to them there, and the first interaction with many of these companies is a chatbot. Like that's the first interaction. Then eventually you get to a human. So this digital layer, I think, is coming. It's here, and it's only going to get deeper. And
that's Web 3.0. That's what's happening. And we obviously we're talking about. We are one small part of this. The bigger shift, the macro shift, is Web 3.0. It's the internet of everything. It's decentralized blockchain transforming everything, and we're just one small part of it. So I think going full circle, social digital avatars, create digital avatars. It's so important because this is the future. You know, not to sound like I'm pontificating, but it really is. And I generally want to express that, you know, if you haven't started really thinking about how do we digitalize ourselves, how do I digitalize my own personal brand, I would implore you as a human. I don't care if you don't use our business, if you don't ever engage with it, doesn't bother me. I mean, I obviously love for you to work with us, whoever you are, but if you didn't, I don't mind. That the big picture is please do start doing this, because don't get left behind, basically, because these skills are going to be the skills you need to know in the new economy, the metaverse, which is being created before our very eyes.
Yeah. And I think the bar is rising. Like, before people could get away with, you know, with posting content or doing the bare minimum, and it would still be in the top, like even someone posting content would get you bang top 10% on LinkedIn. Most people didn't even post it. But now the bar is really rising. And I think how we communicate as well has to be more human. So I think there's a big movement around humanizing how brands and people talk, and there's a lot of the principles of sales are still true. People buy from people. And that's why social selling, digital selling has to be human. It has to be like, there has to be humanity in the way you talk. But underneath that humanity, there is a lot of AI, automation, intelligence, cookies, that's going on. And there's a lot of controversy with it as well. It is scary. And George asked another question here: who has taught you the most about sales for social selling? I think, I don't know, James, if you want to take this one, any scholars who have helped you on your quest for?
Well, I mean, in terms of like strict sales, I think obviously David Thompson was a fantastic. He's a sage when it comes to understanding human psychology and sales, and I think that is so useful for digital stuff, because ultimately you are dealing with humans. So I think understanding sales is still like a lot of the stuff you learn in sales is still so important. It's just the channel in which you communicate is differently, but on a wide level, digital. I can't. There's a couple of people who I think have been banging the drum around kind of this shift for a long time. Obviously, back in 2016, obviously Gary Vaynerchuk was saying, like, he's been up. He's not everyone's cup of tea, but you got to give it to the guy. Like he's been saying for a long time these big shifts are happening. Like, you need to be doing stuff on social media. Social media is so exciting. Be agnostic around the platform. Be focused on technology, you know. But a wider, more recently, I think what's really captivating me about sales is crypto and the technology there, and how that's influencing everything, and how this is just a small part of this big shift. So I think, yeah, there are two figures that have influenced me. I don't know what yours are, Max.
Yeah, I definitely think, yeah, you know, the sales course with David Thompson about the psychology of, you know, of persuasion was great. But in terms of social selling, I mean, I think we've actually pioneered a lot of social selling. I mean, you know, I have definitely learned some stuff along the way, but I think we've, for a long time, been at the cutting edge of this game. And also that's why we're in business, because of our expertise in here. So
you're saying you taught yourself the most about social selling.
I think together through our boundaries so far, that, you know, definitely in sales, like that workshop, David Thompson. So there's a lot around sales, but in terms of strictly social selling, I have not come across many people who have pushed it as far as me. Not to be braggy or, you know, to be like, obviously, I'm just being honest. I'm sure there are many out there who may have done, but I just haven't met anyone who has pushed it as far as we have gone. And I like lives, like how many people do you see doing it? It's still, you know, it's still in the niche. So, you know, shout out
Steve Foreman, who's also a sage. I say Steve is a wise man. Like, if for those of you who don't know Steve, he is a sage when it comes to all things to do with macro or microeconomics, I'd say, in the automotive space. So shout out to Steve.
I think he's done a great job building his personal brand in the digital world. You know, I've followed Steve for a while. Sky News, you know, lots of PR, building his brand out on LinkedIn. So do follow Steve if you are here. He's you know, doing a lot in the space.
Oxford Economics, a senior economist. So shout out to Steve, man. Well done. And actually, without Steve, we wouldn't be here in many ways, because back in the day, as an anecdote, the business started in Steve's front room. When we first started the business, when we was bootstrap startup, is in like no, just hustling, social selling. The early days, I lived as his flatmate with Steve, in Steve's flat in London. It was in Steve's flat that Social Tree Global social selling company emerged. So Steve, in many ways, was a massive part of this this journey we're on. So good to see you.
Yeah, Steve has obviously had a small incubator for startups, and we made it, Steve.
He saw the potential.
Yeah, and his incubator, and we are here. So, but yeah, it's an exciting time, and I think we're all figuring it out at the same time, and all trying to build this. And I think there's a lot of opportunity in this digital space, a lot of threats, and a lot of issues. Like, you know, if you look at other industries, they're saying that automation and AI are actually going to lead to a lot of job losses in like manufacturing and stuff. I wonder if sales professionals, you know, I remember again when I started out, we had a sales floor of, I would honestly say, 50 telemarketers on the desk, and I wonder if those big, large sales teams are going to. Do you think there will be less jobs in this market, or do you think actually there will be more?
100% less jobs. 100%.
Pessimist.
No, I'm not. I can see this a massive labour force participation. Actually, Steve's on the live stream. He is obviously way more expertise in this. My personal opinion is always automation is going to wipe out jobs, sales jobs in particular. So that's why I think it's so important to get skilled up, because you want to be the 5% that keep their job. Sales in its current form is being eaten by automation. It's being eaten by content. It's being eaten by technology. You have to be the best. Even, I mean, to be fair though, mate, of those 50 telemarketers, I think only 1% or 2% made it to actually be successful in sales. I think sales is always brutal. I think most sales professionals, they don't make it for a start. But now, with everything else happening, I think it's going to be even more precise. And I think the best salespeople will make bucket loads of cash. So you'll have a top 1% of sales professionals who have the network. They're smart. You know, I'm very lucky to know some really talented sales professionals who are making a killing. Like, they're just smashing it. SaaS sales, they're going to be laughing. But yeah, the entry level, like sales jobs, are going to be really hard, and they're going to be taken out by automation, I think. And I think it's a massive, that's why we have the Social Tree Academy, because we are trying to do our bit, because I'm really concerned. And that's why we are trying to educate people about social selling on LinkedIn, because I really feel like these skills are going to save jobs. And I don't mean this in a, LinkedIn will save the world, but I just think in our little space, if you're a sales professional and you're not going on LinkedIn, you're not understanding why content marketing is important, you're not understanding the role of automation in your job, you're not understanding that the change in consumer preferences and habits, you are going to be out of a job in 5 years' time. To add to that, the way the world is working now with remote working, we're absolutely going to see a more translucent workforce. So you'll be able to bring people from South Africa, bring people from Australia, New York. You'll be able to hire across the world. And that opens up the labor pool for competition. So I think there's too many stressors to argue that there'll be more jobs from this and less. I mean, you might disagree with me, but I personally think that we are in a downward decline for jobs. And that's why you have to be the best to secure your future.
I don't think anyone can say for sure what the future is going to look like. I think obviously a lot can change. One thing that I have definitely seen from COVID and this is job losses in the sales sector. Like, I think most sales teams have contracted. Maybe a technology sector, not, I think have held strong. And I've actually seen some tech firms hiring. So some sales teams definitely have grown. Others have contracted. I don't know if, I think overall, except for some sectors such as tech and stuff, if you look at the sales team across all industries, like, retail, travel, hospitality, if you look at the sales force in all industries, I think it will definitely contract and continue to contract, with the exception of some industries who probably, and the human touch still is important. And I think in order to have the value of salespeople, I think definitely you won't need as many, but if they are all working together in a digital frontier and all making an impact in this digital space, I think then they will hold their value, because it's so important to have brand ambassadors online and represent the brand.
I think you'll need fewer. They'll get paid loads of money. So you have the salespeople who are thought leaders, who are consultants, who know this stuff. They go to events, they speak at events, they network with people. That's absolutely going to be part of it. But I don't think you're going to see a world, and for 10 years' time, we have call centers, loads of graduates coming in, making phone calls, smiling and dialing. I don't think that's good. I think it's far more efficient as your business to invest in content, to invest in your marketing team. Say, you know what? Why don't we hire 3 videographers, or why don't we hire some graphic designers, or why don't we hire some really interesting?
That is really true. Like, that was my experience of my first job, was like 10, 15 graduates, smile and dial. That was my experience. Nothing about digital selling, nothing about, how you present yourself online, meetings, calls. And many people didn't make it. It was a conveyor belt, really. People burnt out. They'll be in and out. But the marketing team was really small. I think it was like 2 people in the marketing team. Now maybe it's you'll hire 9, 10 graduates for marketing, because we've seen with like social media that you can go viral on your phone. Like, you don't need high production stuff to go viral. Like, if someone does something good on their mobile phone, low production, they can go viral and get great traction. But you need large teams. You need lots of research. If content and the competition for attention gets so fierce, and people and it's a battle for attention, the game will evolve. Like, now suddenly it's not good enough just to post something. You need a team of researchers, you need journalists, you need to create your own communities, you need to create lives, you need a whole team behind creating this digital. If you look at companies like CNBC or like, big media houses, like there's hundreds of people creating these shows. Like, do you think it's just one person wakes up and we're like, right, what show should we put on today? No, it's months of planning. It's talent.
And that's
There'll be a competition for talent, because imagine 1% of people on LinkedIn are actually cutting through the noise. So now, if you are doing well, there will be this massive new economy of digital rock stars who will demand high pay.
And actually, look at so many businesses, they're so underweight on their social media team. They're so underweight. They hire like, oh, I do the social media for my business. It's like one person, or I got 2 people in marketing. And then everyone's saying, oh, you need to do a social media campaign. It's like, well, there's only 2 of us and you're giving up. It's impossible. So I think I think companies are still not awake at just how much resources. And if you front run it, like now with this, you made a point about attention. You know, we're in an arms race or scarcity. The resource of attention is depreciating, and it's like a well getting smaller and smaller and smaller. We're in every brand, B2B, you're in a race for how do I capture audience attention before it's gone. And when it's gone, it's really hard to get back. And you have to, pile resources into your marketing team, invest in technology. That is where you're going to, because once you capture your audience, then life is great because you have your audience, you have your community who are interested in your product. The sales team have they're like consultants really. But if you don't have that community, if you're not working over the next few years to build this attention, this community who are attentive to your brand and what you sell, it's only going to get harder and harder and harder and harder and harder. In 3 years' time, the future, honestly, is pay to play. Organic reach in the future is going to get harder and harder and harder to get. And right now on LinkedIn, you can get massive organic reach, and it's getting smaller because LinkedIn are smart and they're going to monetize the hell out of their platform. So I don't understand. Right now, you can get organic reach. It's open season. If you don't do that now, in 2 or 3 years' time, like Facebook now is pay to play for your company page. If you don't pay anything, you're not getting any awareness. That's happening on LinkedIn, but at the moment, it's not. And if you're a company, if you have staff, if you do advocacy right, if you do social selling right, you can get, I think, millions of pounds worth of value in terms of attention for free, just by putting some time in. And that's why it's so exciting at the moment, because we're in the gold rush era for attention on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think if you look at how teams are weighted, you'd see teams set up so they've got like 50 salespeople, 2 or 3 marketing individuals. I think that's got to change. And actually, I think everyone's got to have a role in marketing, like salespeople, and anyone customer facing has to have a role in digital marketing of their own brand. And it is scary for some people, because they'll be like, well, it's my LinkedIn profile, it's my Twitter. Why should I get, behind the brand and stuff like that? But, in this digital world, you have to be prepared that your digital avatar is interlinked with your work life as well. Like when you're online, you're representing yourself, you're representing your company. And I think anyway, that is how people should behave. Like you should, if you're hungry and you want to get, if you want to get your career going, you should always represent the company that you're working for to the max. Like there should be no, oh, this is my separate identity. Like LinkedIn's for me. I'm not gonna, I think those people got to go, in all honesty. Like I don't think if that's the attitude they've got, I think you need to hire people who
you got to
get behind their team and get out there and start representing. Like you can't have these people hiding in the shadows.
I'm not posting because it's my LinkedIn. I'm not a company man, so I'm not going to post anything about my company I work for. It's like, no, mate, you're on LinkedIn. If you represent that you are at the company, but you're also your own person, of course.
Yeah.
Both are united together. And the thing is, like, a lot of people say of recruiters, oh, if I'm looking for a job, if I'm just posting things about my company, I won't get a job. It's like recruiters are smarter than that. Recruiters are actually really talented social sellers in many ways.
Yeah.
Recruiters, you can find a job very easily. You don't have to have your CV up there. But if you're out there promoting your company, making amazing thought leadership content, being a great ambassador, what better way to sell yourself than that? And I think recruiters are savvy to that. But yeah, it's a really exciting time, and it's terrifying because I think we all have to learn. I've got so much to learn still. We all have so much to learn. I don't know. There's so much I don't know. But that's the sign of the times, to quote the amazing Prince album, R.I.P.
On that cheery note, I think we've rambled on long enough. But if we at Social Tree, we love everything to do with social selling, digital selling. We are pushing the boundaries as far as we can each time. So do follow our company page. to get the latest updates on what we're doing. We've got loads of events coming up, whether it's social media and finance, a few months away. We're running workshops all the time, so check out our company page, look at our events, feel free to register for stuff, and we will figure this out together. And let's all push ourselves to really embrace this digital world. There's a lot of joy here, a lot of good. So let's keep going.
And next week we're back for our themed £1 million pipeline update. So we're going to give you updates. £1 million. It's Harry Potter theme next week. So if you're a Harry Potter fan, which I am, love Harry Potter, tune in. We're gonna entertain you. We've got content competitions, content deathmatch. We've got updates on the pipeline, how we're getting on. If you want to get some actionable updates on social selling into the business, watching us dressed up is a bit of fun, just to kind of end the month. So join along, bring a drink if you want. We'll have some fun, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, everyone.